Tonight, in this edition of the Primetime Newscast on Equinoxe Television, some GC candidates in Kupe Manenguba Southwest region of the country traveled to Lum in the littoral region of the country to take part in the examination. We also tell you how in Moyoka, gunshots drove students out of the examination hall. In this newscast, we tell you the atmosphere and how the Anglophone crisis is affecting ongoing examinations in the northwest and southwest regions of the country. Also ahead, the desecration of the monument of Ruben Omniobe still at the center of debates across the national territory, but the debate was ignored by Sawa chiefs that converged on the economic capital Douala yesterday. They instead called on President Paul Biya to stand as candidate during the 2018 presidential election in the country. And in the second part of this newscast, we shall be telling you what would change as far as the election of the new Director General Elections Cameroon is concerned. It's going to be in the second part of this newscast. Those are headlines. Stay with us for the details. Good evening to you once again, ladies and gentlemen. You are watching the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe Television. We thank you so much for joining us. We begin right here with General Certificate of Education examinations that entered day 2 across the national territory today. As the written part of the GC continued, candidates from Kupe Manenguba division of the southwest region of the country, dressed in assorted attires, had to travel to Lum in the littoral region of the country, where they had to put on their uniforms before taking part in the exams. It simply paints the atmosphere of the chaotic and socio and tension in the two Anglophone regions of the country. Our reporter Innocent Aze tells us that several students in Kupe Manenguba division are currently writing in Lum of the Mongo division. His report.
The written part of the GCE ordinary and advanced levels continues. But this is what candidates from the Kupe Manenguba division of the southwest region go through before moving into their accommodation centers like Government Bilingual High School Lum, Government Bilingual High School Njombe, all in the littoral region, before writing for security reasons. They dress in assorted wear and put on their uniforms only on campus. After the changing exercise, they queue up at the gate for thorough search, unlike others, to ensure they are not in possession of prepared and unwanted materials. Examiners make sure candidates are sensitized before they go writing.
They take time and work well and work very well, and somebody has been cheating all along, copying your work, and in the end they will sanction the two of you.
Anglophone candidates who fled the socio-political crisis to compose the GCE in Lum littoral region think well of their mates writing amid the Anglophone crisis.
My name is Iboara Maike. I also have something to say, like encouraging my brothers who are in Southwest and Northwest. We pray that as we sit for our exams here, their exams will also go well where they are now. We pray that all what is going on in the Anglophone sections to come to our end, because Cameroon is one and indivisible.
According to Andre Marie Janfang, in charge of Lum, 506 students registered for the GCE ordinary and advanced levels, but only 502 began writing. 4 were absent for unjustified reasons.
Carte d'identité scolaire, j'ai failli dire, comme toujours.
In Government Bilingual High School Njombe Accommodation Center, all 84 ordinary level candidates expected to write were present, as noted by Nathalie Mouen, chief of the Njombe Accommodation Center.
Et tous les 84 sont présents.
She also indicated that for the Baccalaureate General Examination, which kicked off Tuesday, 231 candidates out of 232 who registered began writing. Only 1 candidate was absent. The divisional officer of Lum, Pascal Joa, made a tour and confirms absolute serenity reigns in all accommodation centers in his area of command.
And candidates of the General Certificate of Education examination had to abandon their scripts in Moyoka Fako Division, southwest region of the country, and fled for safety when unknown armed individuals stormed to the school and started raining bullets. The southwest regional governor Bernard Okalia Bilai on his part visited some centers in Boya and Limbe and said that day one unfolded hitch-free. Derek Jato tells us more in this report.
These are the 2018 General Certificate of Education candidates heading to their accommodation centers for the written part of the examinations. It is day one of the 2018 session and most candidates are not in their school uniform for security reasons. The road to this institution is exceptionally very busy because all the centers around here have been transferred to the said school for security reasons, and for the fact that the name of the said institution is not mentioned here is also a security measure. But we are in Boya, the southwest regional capital. The region is having 48 accommodation centers and 39,000 candidates are expected to sit in for the exams this year. Southwest Governor Bernard Okalia Bilai this day one also descended to some accommodation centers in Boya and Limbe, during which he was briefed that the exams have started on a peaceful note.
Appreciations are very good appreciation. We want to congratulate the organizers and thank the security forces and the parents too for what they have been doing for this first day. We want to tell them to continue because those are our children. We must take care of them. They are preparing for their future and we should not allow anybody to try to jeopardize their future.
Boya and Limbe might have scored 90% this day one, but that was not the case in Moyoka, a subdivision in Fako Division. The Loan Center in Moyoka subdivision was transformed into a gun battleground, forcing students to abandon their scripts and escape for safety. Reports say the gun battle between the Ambazonian Defense Forces and security forces lasted for over 1 hour, and the afternoon session never took place in Moyoka subdivision.
And school buildings in Melong have so far been refurbished after a dreaded downpour removed several rooftops. That was an incident that occurred few days ago. Franklin Moabe reports that the structures have, however, still no guarantee that such an incident would not happen again. His report. And before that, we now talk about the fire disaster that took place in Kumbo, a Bui division of the northwest region of the country, where traders at the Kumbo market helplessly watched ravaging flames to reduce their shops to ashes. The fire, which broke out, that was in the early hours of this morning or last night. The incident, up to now, it is not known what caused the fire disaster. It is equally alleged that it resulted from the sudden return of electricity. Kumbo has been in the dark for 2 days now, and shortly after electricity was restored in the area, 4 shops were reduced to ashes. Enormous material damage was recorded. Let's now have an excerpt of one of the local inhabitants in Kumbo. He shall be telling us the circumstances and how the fire disaster is going to be affecting his day-to-day activities. Take a listen.
This thing started all along in the night. People were asleep. We thank God for the night watch that alert some of us that arrived here, though we came late. And I don't actually know the cause of this thing, but I suggest it is maybe power failure that was not in Kubu for the past 2 days, and it came late at night. And I'm sure maybe by the power that the light happens to come with, it destroyed maybe our cables. This fire happened. Actually, I do computing here, then Babbing as well. And as far as my losses are concerned, I lost my computers, I lost my shaving equipment, and I equally lost.
That is the situation which took place in Kumbo just few hours ago. Enormous material damage recorded following the fire incident of last night in that part of the Bui Division, northwest region of Cameroon. And GC examination entered day 2 as well in Kumbo today under tight security. Yesterday we showed you images of how it was under tense atmosphere that the GCE was written in the two examination centers or accommodation centers in Kumbo. Day 2 as well was under tense atmosphere in other parts of the northwest and the southwest regions of Cameroon. In Moyoka, as we said earlier, it was practically difficult yesterday for students of the General Certificate of Education to write the examination. The loan center was invaded by armed, unidentified civilians. Reports say that the loan center in Moyoka of the Fako division has simply been transferred to an undisclosed site. Still on the General Certificate of Education, we take you now to Fundong, Boyo division of the northwest region of Cameroon, where an administrative block was set ablaze last night, reducing to ashes some examination questions and writing materials. It is still unknown whether the incident was masterminded. Investigations are on the way. Now, Andre Blaise Esama, we are here in the economic capital Douala, was at the center of attraction this Tuesday in Bona Priso. He and tens of youths visited the site to host the monument of Ruben Omyobe that was simply desecrated by chiefs of the Bell Canton. Security forces intervened and forcefully pulled them out of the area. Details in this report. Another spectacular show at the Ruben Omyobe Avenue in Bona Priso, Douala. But this time, Andre Blaise Esama was at the forefront. The social activists and tens of youths in Douala stormed the site earmarked for the erection of the monument of Ruben Omyobe to get rid of what they called disorder brought by chiefs of the Bell Canton last weekend. The fearless youths cleaned the surrounding to prepare the site where the statue would be placed in the coming weeks. Security forces intervened minutes after and forcefully pulled them out of the area. Circulation was paralyzed for several minutes.
Si nous chantons au Cameroun berceau de nos ancêtres, pourquoi avoir honte de nos ancêtres? C'est une petite honte, disons qu'il y a...
Andre Blaise Esama has criticized the action of the chiefs of the Bell Canton and said that nationalism in essence has to overcome all tribalistic tendencies.
C'est à nos papas d'être très nationalistes et de comprendre que la profondeur du nationalisme, la raison nationaliste doit être au-dessus de la raison tribaliste.
Happening at the time when the concept of living together is under continuous debates, the social activist said that desecrating the structure to host the monument of a national hero like Ruben Omyobe makes the notion of living together questionable.
Ou le repli identitaire, nous sommes en train de parler de vivre ensemble à 7 jours de l'unité nationale. Il y a un véritable problème de la méconnaissance de ce vivre ensemble. Vivre ensemble, ça veut dire qu'on peut mettre le monument de Douala Mangabel.
And traditional rulers in the littoral region, precisely in Douala, ignore the much talked about desecration of the Ruben Omyobe monument in an extraordinary meeting that took place in the city. That was yesterday. 9 Sawa chiefs instead endorsed the candidacy of President Paul Biya. The Ngondo chiefs, on behalf of the people of Sawa, congratulated the head of state his vigorous and prompt management of the socio-political crisis plaguing Cameroon today. The chiefs openly invited President Paul Biya to the city of Douala. It was during an extraordinary session of Sawa chiefs that took place in the city of Douala yesterday. And the Cameroon Employers Union has given a series of proposals to the government aimed at helping to heal the sick business landscape in the country. During a working visit of the finance minister to JICAM, the president, Celestin Tawamba, tabled a long list of problems plaguing the business sector in the country. Babla Jonathan tells us more in this report.
L'environnement des affaires au Cameroun souffre. Celestin Tawamba, president of the Cameroon Employers Union, laments over the plethora of problems plaguing the business landscape in Cameroon. Insufficient infrastructure, insufficient and poor quality electric energy at high cost. Administrative bottlenecks, difficulties of access to financing, notably by small and medium-sized enterprises, disloyal competition of imported goods, fraud and counterfeiting, unadapted and excessive taxation, more inclined to revenue collection than development of enterprises. These obstacles are hindering the growth of enterprises, notably those of the private sector. Enterprises are dying, some are indebted and others are in very difficult conditions, while tax revenue is increasing.
We are facing a very severe economic crisis. This you know. And you know that in December 2016, there was a summit in Yaoundé conveyed by President Biya with the other head of states of the CEMAC countries. And one of the decisions that have been taken on that day was that the private sector should play a very important, a key role. And this is why we are here today, to let them know that they have to play that role.
The Cameroon Employers Union, GCAM, has given a series of proposals to government in a bid to improve on the business climate in the country. The proposals were officially handed over to the Minister of Finance, Louis-Paul Moutaze, Monday. Companies' auto-financing strength should be enhanced.
They gave us some propositions so as to ameliorate the taxation department, the custom departments, what they are doing. But I cannot say that these are the decisions that will be taken afterwards. What we have to do is, with those propositions, to go back to Yaoundé with my people, with my colleagues, to go deeper into those propositions and to see what are those propositions, the propositions that have to be taken into consideration, that have to be implemented.
Minister Louis-Paul Moutaze announced that every year the Ministry of Finance and GCAM will meet to discuss the latter's proposals concerning the coming financial year's draft budget before the bill is tabled in Parliament. He also visited customs and partner services based in Douala to evaluate the implementation of government's efforts to modernize the customs department and significantly ease clearance procedures at the Douala seaport. It is for this purpose that an agreement was signed between the customs department and the Douala Port Authority.
We now bring you back to these school buildings in Melong, Mongo division of the littoral region of Cameroon that have been refurbished after a dreaded downpour removed several rooftops, an incident that occurred several weeks ago. Franklin Moabe reports that the structures, however, could still be exposed to a similar incident. His report.
The image of Government Nursery School Group 1 Melon you see today is a direct contrast to how it was a month ago after heavy downpour shattered the rooftop of several buildings. The strong rains in April, which brought down the roofs of schools in Melon, prompted an immediate reaction from the mayor after his office was notified.
Okay, on the 19th of April this year, there was a strong storm that passed and it destroyed the roof of my school. Immediately, the mayor of Melon too was called upon.
It is from this backdrop that the mayor and inspector of basic education in Melon paid a visit to the school to take stock of the situation and evaluate work done so far. The headmistress seized the opportunity of the mayor's presence to raise other difficulties faced by pupils and teachers of the school.
Because the site of my school is in the market. In short, I can say that the classes are in the market stores and we have a lot of problems. vehicles that come and carry maize in the market, they pass in the school. Sometimes they park their big lorries right in front of the school, covering even the passage of the classroom, in such that the children cannot even come out. Sometimes we are even afraid that the children can even go under the vehicle.
Despite the work done on the rooftops, the ceilings are still in bad state and desperately call for attention.
And a Cameroonian non-governmental organization is now battling to demystify the general negative notion behind menstrual hygiene. How to maintain sanitation during this period in a woman's life is the objective that mothers of all nations seeks to achieve. They converge on the city of Douala that was precisely at Peka this month on the sidelines of the Menstrual Hygiene Day, as we see in the following report. Statistics by UNICEF show that 1 in every 10 schoolgirls miss classes during their menstrual period. Another study reveals that some of them could miss 5 days of school per month, which equates to 60 school days per year. This, according to gender promoters, is common in our today's society because embracing menstruation is still a problem.
It's not always about people stigmatizing them, but it's about them stigmatizing their own selves. You will find women who, when they're on their periods, they won't go to school, they won't go to work. To me, it's more about them to take up the challenge for menstruation is not an illness. Menstruation is just a normal thing, so it's for you to embrace it. When you embrace it, more people embrace it with you. And I think when it comes to talking about hygiene, and one of the issues that make them maybe stay back, who don't want to go to work, who don't want to go to school, is because maybe they feel pains. I think those pains they used to feel at times is due to an infection. So having a constant medical check keeps you from, makes you stay healthy, keeps you free from infections and free from the pains.
That is the challenge that coordinators of Mother of All Nations seek to address. The non-governmental organization on the International Day for Menstrual Hygiene sought to demystify this period in a young woman's life, especially those in local communities who are sometimes unaware of menstrual cycles and sanitation measures during this period.
And most of the girls and women there are not educated. They are not exposed to information. So we are here now to sensitize them to know their menstrual cycle and to educate them on menstrual hygiene.
Access to sanitary pads is also a problem some of the young girls are facing. This NGO is now working on how to put reusable pads at the disposal of young girls, especially those in interior localities in the country.
One is having a project. We have a project that we are working on menstruation to produce reusable pads for local communities, because most of them are not able to buy pads.
The Global Menstrual Hygiene Day, celebrated every May 28th, was initiated in 2014 by WASH United to build awareness about the fundamental role that good menstrual hygiene management plays in enabling young women attain their full potentials. And that brings us to the end of this first segment of the news. Time for us to meet our guests. We shall be right back. Good evening to you once again, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Celestin Jamin, good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening, Mimi, and good evening for all your telespectators. Thank you very much for inviting me on this newscast. Thank you.
Thank you so much once again for coming. We are going to be talking about elections Cameroon. It now has a new Director General, Enrique Esose, that was appointed yesterday in a presidential decree to replace Abdoulaye Babali that has been there since 2015. What do you have to say? What is your take as far as the appointment is concerned?
First of all, I want you to beg your pardon and allow me a few seconds to talking about the scandal committed last week by the traditional rulers in Douala, here in Douala first. I think that I follow this act as a scandal because it seemed for me like a second death, a second killing of Mr. Umnyobe. The Cameroonian territory is not belong to Douala people. The region of West is not belong to Bamileke. We have only one category of territory in Cameroon. It's the territory of the Republic. Umnyobe is not belong to Bassa people. It's not belong to Bamileke people. It's belong to entire Cameroonian people. So when we choose, when we decide, when the public authority decide to dedicate a memorial to some national hero, this must be respected. And I think that the Sawa traditional rulers, for instance, those for Canton Bell, must present the excuse, must apologize to the fault committed by contesting the edification of memorial dedicated to Umnyobe.
They must apologize. That is what you say.
Yes, they must do that.
If the structure is put in place without their knowledge,
yes,
is it correct?
It's not correct.
As a politician, is that correct for a structure to be erected? Because that is one of the excuses they are giving. That they were not aware of the project. They didn't know about it. They were not officially informed.
No.
Like
the public authority don't have to inform. We are in the Republic. We are not in the, monarchy. When the public authority take a decision, every citizen must accept this decision.
Without consulting the
I will continue advocating for the living together, of course. But this decision was taken by Mr. Ntone with the 6 mayors of Douala first, Douala, Vuri, plus Manoka. That means it's a collective decision.
You have been calling administrators. I've not heard you calling traditional rulers.
No.
I was expecting
traditional ruler is the
traditional rulers
of the society.
Were informed and they were aware of the putting in place of this structure.
Yes, but the law is beyond all the communitarism, because everybody can argue that I am Sawa, I am Nordis, I am Bamileke, I am Bafia, and so don't put a stranger on my line. That is not acceptable, because there is only one category of territory in the Republic, as the territory of the Republic. Douala is not belong to Sawa. Bamene is not belong to Santa, to Anglophone people. It's the territory of the Republic. So I don't think that, for me, it's the act of vandalism, because this public, memorial is a decision taken by the public authority, so that I think the argue given to the public, that means that Mr. Rudolph Douala-Mangabel has not his memorial in Bonapriso. That is not an argument. Umnyobe is the hero who's lived in Douala. He had to hold his meeting in Commando and to Newbel. So he had the legitimacy, the right to have his memorial in Douala.
Your interpretation is that the chiefs of the Bell Canton do not want a monument of somebody from another clan or another locality stationed
is what I'm calling
in Douala. Is that your interpretation?
Yes, because that is the fact. Because if we do that for the Rudolph Douala-Mangabel, there will not be any attacks against this memorial.
To present their excuse.
Yes, because this act is an act of tribalism and of act of vandalism. And normally in the normal republic, we will launch a prosecution against them. But I don't want to enter on this topic, because in the moment, our friends and our brothers of two Anglophone speaking region are in the fire, and we open another front in the Francophone region. It's not acceptable. It's not the moment to do that. They don't have the right to do that, because Umnyobe is the hero for all the entire nation. It's not only the hero for Douala or for Bassa. No.
So what do you
think
we must
respect our icon?
The Douala City Council should do? Go ahead and
go ahead, because Umnyobe is our hero, and his memorial need to be put everywhere in the national territory,
even
in the
if
entire
the chiefs
territory.
are totally against.
Chief is a part of the society, but they don't have the right to contest the decision of the public authorities. That is not acceptable.
Very well then, Mr.
Yes.
Celestin German. One of the decisions, maybe you have something to say before we...
No. Coming for your excellent question concerning Elekam, I think that the problem is not the replacement of Mr. Esuse by Mr. Babale, by Mr. Esuse. The problem is not the individual. I think it's the functioning of Elekam himself itself. Because when you see Article 9 of the Electoral Code, what did it say? It said that the General Direction of Election Cameroons is working under the authority of Electoral Board, of course. But when you read carefully the Article 26, they attribute the same, they give the same attribution to the Electoral Board and to the Director General. So the man who create this organ into two organs into the same organ, he created confusion. That means that, okay, one of the articles said that the Direction General is in charge of the organization and the material preparation of the elections. So when we look in the practice, we look that they have the same attribution. For instance, to publish the list, Electoral Board with General Direction of Electoral Election have the same right to publish electoral list, and they transfer also the report of the polling station to the hierarchy. So they have the same attribution. That is a confusion created by Mr. Biya. So what occurred today is not normal.
So that explains why there is constant conflict between the president of board of directors and the director general of elections.
Because Mr. Biya created the roots of confusion, the conflict, permanent conflict. How can you explain that someone create a organ supposed to be independent, and he put two divisions in this organ? Is it normal?
But many institutions are having president of board of directors. Is the problem now at the level of the text, or the problem is because there is the existence of these two posts of responsibilities? We have other institutions that have president of board of directors and general managers, and things are moving on normally.
Yes, because their role don't clearly established in this country. Because when you give to the electoral board the right to publish the electoral list and to transfer the report of the election to the hierarchy, and you attribute the same role to the
board of directors, president of board of directors.
That means that you are conscious to create a confusion. You created the roots of the permanent conflict.
Many people would argue that it's a problem of ego. Like you said,
the
Director General is supposed to be under the president of board of directors.
Yes.
But based on the outing of Eno Abrams Egbe that was circulating, everybody had access to it. It was indicating that on several occasions the Director General was called to attend a meeting and he failed to show up.
That's true, you are right for some part, but I want to remind you that what I'm saying just before you send me the question, I said that in many parts of the text, electoral code, they give to the two personalities the same role. That means that in the practice is not the theory. So I think that is important to appoint an organ and put one director, only one director. Even we must give them a collaborators, a treasury, etc., etc. Yes, assistant. That's very simple. SCF since a long time asks for pledging for a national electoral commission, independent commission, with the mixed composition. But if Mr. Biya chose to create the confusion by appointed two heads in the same organ.
And
that
talking about those that the
acceptable.
appointees, those that have been appointed, we see that the Director General of Elections Cameroon and his assistant were former workers at the then Ministry of Territorial Administration in Cameroon.
Yes.
Can we say that it is simply the Ministry of Territorial Administration being transferred into Elecam?
You know that when I read Article 43 of the Electoral Code, the Minister of Administration Territorial still involved to the process, because the law said that is the interface between the Elecam and the government. That is not normal, because Elecam is supposed to be independent. So if you are really independent, you don't need to be the interface between the government and the Ministry of Administration,
which is under the government.
Yes.
Talking about the independency of elections, Cameroon, in a few weeks from now, the government would obviously have to be convening the electoral college based on the calendar ahead of the municipal elections in the country.
Yes.
Do you think that elections Cameroon is ready at this point in time, looking at the socio-political crisis in the two Anglophone regions, the conflict within elections Cameroon in itself? Do you think that Elecam is ready?
You know, Mr. Babale, the former director of Elections Cameroon, denounced that. Maybe it's the cause of his eviction. I don't know. Because he gave this occasion to the Cameroonian to understand that maybe the election could not be able to be held in all the Cameroonian region because of the war in the two English-speaking regions. And that's true. Because how can you manage election there?
We saw it during the senatorials. Yeah. There were several areas where the elections...
No, it's an indirect election. It's not the same thing. That is a popular election.
Of course.
So the person are afraid to go to the vote when a war is still on the field. It is not possible. So that he pointed something very important, very pertinent, and I think that the authority must be very careful, because right now, but Mr. Biya could postpone the legislative and municipalities. But the presidential, how can he do? How can he do?
There's
right
no
now?
way, it's unavoidable.
It's very delicate, very important.
Thank you so much, Mr. Celestin Jamin, for joining us tonight on Talking Point.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to our viewers. It was equally a pleasure having you with us in this edition of the Primetime Newscast on Equinoxe Television. Wishing you a blessed stay in the company of our programs. Until we meet again, goodbye.